What's good, y'all? It's your boy Sean Peter Blunt God. Hey! And we are back with another One Piece reaction. Today we will be reacting to the big homie, Parvision. And the title of this video is Shanks, the Guardian of the New Era. You know, I've heard a lot of talk about Shanks being this gatekeeper. So, kind of the vibes I'm getting from this theory, you know, Shanks being like a gatekeeper. Now, before we get into the actual video, make sure you guys hit that like button. Also, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Comment down below your thoughts on the theory. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What do you agree with me with? Like, what did I miss? You know, or just call me an idiot. I don't care. Just comment down below. Let me know your feelings. For real, for real. Also, follow me on Twitch so you can catch me live. You can engage with me in real time. If you want to get at me directly, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and join the Discord. I'm usually the most active in the Discord, so that's the best place to get at me, actually. And if you want to send me content to react to, I have a channel specifically designated for you guys to send me content. And if you want to be part of a future discussion stream, make sure you are a member of the Discord. Also, the link to this video will be in the description box, so y'all make sure y'all go show Parvision some love. Go subscribe to this man content. He be dropping that fire. I will say that. Bro, every time I do a reaction to Parvision, it's like, I'm like, bro, like, it's like we got similar minds. Like, if I was a theorist, like, if I was a theorist, I'd probably be like Parvision, honestly. Like, some of the concepts and thoughts he be having, I'm like, bro, I think, you know, you think kind of like me, bro. Like, bro, for real. Like, I really rock with Parvision's content. So y'all make sure y'all go show. If y'all rock with me, y'all rock with Parvision. Y'all gotta rock with Parvision, you know. But yeah, Shanks being this guardian of the new world. I don't really know where we going. I don't wanna speculate too much of what this video is about. It is a bit lengthy, so you know, I want to get started. But I have heard this idea of Shanks being like a gatekeeper, him being there to test Luffy to ensure he is indeed the right person to find the One Piece. And I think there's a lot of clues that show like Shanks being a gatekeeper, right? Like he obviously don't want Blackbeard to be the one, but Blackbeard, I believe Blackbeard's will is just too strong for somebody like Shanks to stop. You know what I mean? So that's why he tried to go to the Gorosei. Well, we don't know what he went to talk to the Gorosei about, but it could be about Luffy or Blackbeard, right? Two candidates for becoming Pirate King. I think those two are the top two candidates of finding the One Piece and becoming Pirate King, Luffy and Blackbeard. So there's that. Also, him going to Whitebeard to warn Whitebeard about Blackbeard, or what, you know, to protect Ace, of course. Tell Whitebeard to call off Ace from hunting down Blackbeard. So he does kind of act like a father, like the fatherly figure of the new world, where he's like, you know, I don't think the right people, you know, I'm the protector of, you know, the One Piece, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Where I can't just let anybody find it. I gotta ensure the right person to find it. But is that really the case? Because it almost seems like he wants to find the One Piece for himself, right? So is that really the case? I don't know. Let's see what Parvision has to say, though. Let's get into it. Yes, sir. Y'all make sure y'all go subscribe to Parvision.
Literally raised the roof in 1079, but it's not something we shouldn't have seen or understood. In fact, he told us the outcome of this event way ahead of time, and I want to speak upon that. I think chapter 1079 should be akin to chapter 1044. These are chapters that are meant to give us a glimpse of the future of One Piece, the future that many viewers and consumers of One Piece either don't see or can't even comprehend. And I've used the phrase beyond our imagination several times in my videos in the past to allude to this probable future. But now more than ever, the future is here, and it's coming quickly, so let me help you connect to it before it catches you off guard. The way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the
Parvision.
So baby. I said that Oda told us ahead of time that Shanks would imaginary diff.
Par, you know I gotta say that with you all the time, man. That's a catchy intro, bro. I like it. I love it. I love it. Let me connect you to my vision, the Parvision, baby. Love it. I love it.
Kid in 1079, despite everyone on all sides failing to properly calculate the extent of Shanks' power that he displayed. I mean, off of chapter 1076, one of my major takeaways was this, right? We've seen Law on his ship. We've seen Law in his sauce. We've seen Law in the water. I don't think we've seen Kid on his ship. We don't know what, maybe he has something special on his ship. Kid finally is like, you know what? I'm gonna pull out the railgun. Or on his ship, he has something crazier. He could wipe out the fleet that's in front of him, like however many ships there are. And that could be terrifying, right?
I wonder if like Kid carries all that metal on his ship. Like now you talking about him, cause you know he creates the railgun with his devil fruit ability, but does he like keep all that metal on his ship so he can like use it whenever he needs it? I think that'd be smart on Kid's half, you know what I'm saying? Instead of just pulling whatever metal's around, because what if you're in an area with not a lot of metal? Might want to carry a bunch of metal with you, right? I think that would be smart on Kid's half for his devil fruit. But in the world where everybody got guns and all the guns are metal, you know, I mean, it's not that hard to it's not that hard to find metal to use. I will say that.
That could be like, oh damn, I didn't think he could just like wipe out like actual Shanks' fleet like that. Hey, that's a W. I give that a W, right? But like I don't know how far that W goes in terms of Shanks' part, and I don't know where the climax would be. And I thought this is what was going to happen, but I couldn't comprehend the aftermath, and now we know why. The depths of Shanks' anger and how much power was behind that one popped vein was incalculable. I mean, we didn't even see this of Shanks when he stopped Akainu, but we did see a version of this. In fact, we saw 2 popped veins from Shanks when he was deterring Admiral Ryokugu. Now, obviously, I'm not using the veins as a legitimate power scaling benchmark, but I do think that Oda was displaying something.
No, I get what you're saying, Par. It's Shanks actually being serious, right? Like Shanks, like I think it was stated in the SBS or a data card or like a data book or whatever, or a Vivri card, I don't remember, where it's like Shanks is the most dangerous when he's angry. You know, like it was stated, I think it was stated from each Yonko when they're the most dangerous. You know, I think Big Mom's was like when she's hungry. I don't really remember Kaido's or Black. I don't know if we got Blackbeard or Whitebeard. I don't remember who we got. Kaido might have been like when he's drunk. I'm not sure. I don't really remember Kaido's. But Shanks was when he's angry, he's the most dangerous. So, and Shanks was pretty freaking angry at Kid. He was pretty angry. Brank said, what? Of course Kid can wipe out a fleet. Kaido's is when he's drunk. Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought so. I wasn't sure.
Thing here. I mean, the feat in chapter 1055 was a ridiculous one. That probably comes from a similar anger that Shanks felt in 1079. But at chapter 1055, when Shanks showed up to Wano, we should have understood that Shanks was beyond everything we currently know. If we take into account where Shanks was, he was outside of the inner seas of Wano, which are already vast. Then the land of Wano itself is massive. Many people have scaled Wano to be double the size of India. And while those scales might not appeal to you, in the story we have a line that says, in Wano, in order to deliver the news, they shot arrows from the central point of Wano, and this line here translates to over 1,000 miles. Meaning from the center of Wano to the other regions is about this far. And while speaking,
my question is how they shoot them arrows that far, bro? Like who's shooting them arrows to where they're going that goddamn far? Like is it devil fruit ability? Like how them arrows? Like arrows don't stay in the air that long. Arrows don't stay in the air that long. You know, like whoever's shooting this must have been like, they must have had like a god level bow or something. Like, come on, like that's wild.
Speaking to several people more familiar with the language, this could be seen as a hyperbole, as it was officially translated as great distances, but fairly understood that it'd be fair to say something closer to at least like 100 miles. And so you can reasonably understand that Shanks has an observation hockey range that seems to casually be larger than Anel's realm of perception, whose perception was boosted by his lightning fruit. And on top of that, in this scene, Shanks also used his Conqueror's hockey to essentially send a very strong message to an admiral that was enough to deter him. Now, a lot of people have taken this portrayal of Aramaki on Wano as a way to denounce his strength and stature as a combatant, but he is still an admiral and should be regarded with a higher power perspective, and especially with...
Yeah, the Green Bull disrespect that I've seen, like, especially like, I've seen some tier power scaling streams where they was treating like Green Bull was like a bum. I'm like, damn, like Green Bull, like he soloed King and Queen, even though King and Queen, I guess they weren't at full strength, right? And we don't know the full details of how that fight went. Did Green Bull surprise him, catch him off guard, right? Did his ability surprise him? Did they have on Sea Stone? I think somebody proved that they didn't. King and Queen didn't have Sea Stone cuffs, but I would think they would have it since they're in prison. Like King could fly. Like why wouldn't you put Sea Stones on a guy who could fly away and another guy who could turn dinosaur? So or like a Brachiosaurus, like a big ass Brachio. So yeah.
1079 in perspective, Aramaki backing down immediately makes sense. I mean, if you put the 1079 Shanks feat into perspective, he literally could have flew to Wano and shown up right next to the Admiral if he wanted to. Aramaki did not mess around, put his hands up almost immediately, showing he understood how insanely powerful Shanks was. And like we should view chapter 1079 and chapter 1055, we shouldn't use these scenes to lower the characters on the receiving end of Shanks' anger, but instead we should use these moments to understand how much further Shanks is from everyone else. Shanks in these scenes demonstrated a power gap that should be respected, and what's really interesting was I pointed out this line when it was released and not many people really viewed it the same way I did, but I think now it makes a lot more sense, and King of Lightning agrees. Shanks calls Luffy and the other primary pirates on Wano.
I mean, King of Lightning loves Shanks. King of Lightning loves Shanks, bro. I do, like, of course he going of course King of Lightning going to agree with anything that supports Shanks being the strongest. But yeah. I just had to call him out for that, man, because I know I like King of Lightning. I love his content, but the man loves some Shanks, bro. He loves his Shanks.
New shoots, or as TCB translated it, as saplings, or as Artur told me, new leaves, which sounds so interesting because that is still an early stage of a flowering plant. For Shanks to describe the new era to still be new shoots or saplings after they just unrooted two major Yonkos that have spent literally decades planting themselves and strengthening their stranglehold over the world. And the reason why this line stood out to me was because it was a direct parallel to what Rayleigh said of the Strahds back on Sabaody when Kizaru was attacking them. To paint the parallel, a former Roger pirate came to the aid of the new era, standing against an admiral in the efforts to allow the new era to grow. And Rayleigh says in chapter 511,
bro, this shit trippy as hell. It's trippy with that little plant saplings in the back. That was starting to, like, I was starting to get distracted. Like I was getting like hypnotized by this little saplings in the back. My bad, Par. I kind of was losing track of the video with them. Them things was hypnotizing.
Before they sprout. Their era is only just beginning. And if you were to take this line and understand Rayleigh's role for a second, you can see how this is a reflection of power. Rayleigh and Shanks are playing a gardener role here, and small plants need the extra care and nourishment. And going into Sabaody, we got several times of how much of a distance there was between Rayleigh and the worst generation. For example, in
you know something like comparing Rayleigh and Shanks? I think somebody made a theory that like Rayleigh is like the gatekeeper of the Grand Line. Not like of okay. Like there's Roger pirates all through the world that kind of act like gatekeepers, right? Like you had we had what's the dude's name? He was in Laboon. He's the one who takes care of Laboon. He's the doctor. I can't remember his name, but he was like just remember he was part of the Roger Pirates, and he was like the first person you meet at the Grand Line, like that the Straw has met at the Grand Line. Like he is right at the entrance of the Grand Line, and then Rayleigh is kind of like at the end of the Grand Line where he's like the test to see if, I guess, if you're even ready for the New World, I guess you could say, right? And then Shanks is like the well, I guess somebody says Scopper could be like the Rayleigh of the New World, right? Like Scopper Gabon being the Rayleigh of the New World. And then maybe Shanks, they didn't say this, but I'm kind of adding this now. Maybe Shanks would be more of the guardian or the gatekeeper of Laugh Tale. Like before you get the Laugh Tale and find the One Piece, you got to go through Shanks, right? Like before you go to when you enter the Grand Line, you get you stop at the one dude, the doctor. I be forgetting his name, and then you meet Rayleigh at the end. You know, he's kind of like that gatekeeper at the end of the Grand Line, right before you go into New World, and then somewhere Scopper might be in the New World, and then Shanks is like before you go to Laugh Tale, Shanks has to approve of you first.
Chapter 498, Shaki, who we now know to be an ex-empress of Amazon Lily, gave us an interesting estimate that Rayleigh was about 100 times stronger than Sabaody Luffy. Then when Rayleigh actually shows up at the auction house and he uses his haki, which was largely unknown to all the pirates present, and thereafter countering Kizaru for the Straw Hats, he was demonstrating the exact upgrades that Luffy specifically needed to attain to close that 100 multiplier gap that Shaki explained. I think all of this is the exact same role that Shanks played in chapter 1055 and then demonstrated to us in chapter 1079. Shanks showed up protecting the new era just like Rayleigh and updates the progress report saying that Luffy and the rest are now new shoots, new leaves, or my favorite, saplings. We didn't get a multiplier estimate like we did from Shaki previously, but no, we got something way better, a direct display of the difference, the gap between a 3 billion bounty pirate and Shanks. And that's why I said Oda already prepared us with that line. Him calling Kid a sapling and even Luffy respectfully here should have really created this expectation no matter how ridiculous it felt. They aren't even plants yet. They still need guidance. And most importantly, just like how the powers that Rayleigh demonstrated to us while being introduced were what Luffy and his crew needed, I believe that Shanks set the new vision, the new goal. Both chapters 1055 and 1079 with Wi-Fi Haki and basically Superman Goku
Wi-Fi
are where we
Haki.
need to see Luffy.
I like that. I like that title, Wi-Fi Hockey. You get it. You get it delivered anywhere right there. That's wireless hockey. That's wireless hockey. But yeah, like I still struggle to say that the Supernova Law Kid Luffy, I still don't think they're really like stronger than the old Yonko just yet, because when we look at the circumstances that they won in Wano, you look at Big Mom, it took both Kid and Law to beat Big Mom. Kaido defeated Luffy a bunch of times before Luffy was able to defeat him, and this was after Kaido pretty much like been ran through the gauntlet. Like Kaido was running through a whole gauntlet pretty much. His leading up to his defeat, he was fighting nonstop. You know what I mean? And Luffy got an upgrade, right? So a fresh Kaido, like now fresh Kaido versus a fresh Luffy, I don't know how that would go, right? A fresh Big Mom versus a fresh Kid, I think it might actually happen the same way that Shanks did the Kid, honestly. You know what I mean? I still think the OG Yonko are superior to the Supernova, the monster trio of the Supernova. It's just, you know, they were defeated, yeah, but, you know, Big Mom had to fight two Supernova, and then Kaido was fighting a bunch of people, before Luffy could defeat him. I still do give Luffy that defeat, but to me, it's still more of an asterisk defeat. I had to see Luffy defeat a Yonko, a fully fresh Luffy versus a fully fresh Yonko, strict 1-on-1, no outside interference. And then, that would really help me gauge like Luffy's true strength. But I do think during Wano, Luffy has got a lot stronger than, before Wano or the beginning of Wano.
At before Luffy even takes on the final arcs. Something we have to remember is that Shanks is this awkward soul in between two eras. But when Rayleigh says the new era should be created by people who live in the present, I think Shanks should be allowed to partake in it. Something is holding him back, or maybe more accurately, something is pulling him forward. Clearly, he is extremely strong and powerful, but why can't he create the change he wants to see? Why does he need the new era to do it? And for that, let's take a better look at what Shanks actually showed us in these demonstrations.
And I also want to say this. Parvision, just to kind of add. I don't know if you talk about this in the video, but to kind of add as Shanks playing a guardian or gatekeeper, like we know Shanks stole the Gum Gum no Mi or the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, right? Shanks took that. The question is, did Shanks steal the Gumu Gumu no Mi knowing its true identity, right? And what it truly was? Because if Shanks did, that might actually play a part into Shanks not wanting anybody to get that devil fruit. Maybe he wanted to ensure it got to the right person. Maybe he was trying to give it to Ace because he thought Ace was the one who was supposed to be the next Pirate King, right? And Luffy managed to eat it. So, and maybe Shanks is realizing like, okay, you was right in eating it. You was the one chosen to eat that devil fruit. Maybe he stole it for himself. Maybe he was going to eat it. You know what I mean? But I think a conversation could be had that Shanks knew about the true identity of the Gumu Gumu no Mi. Therefore, that's why he stole it, to ensure that the government couldn't have it and that just some random pirate couldn't get it either. Just throwing that out there.
Let's put this in perspective first, which is that whatever we've seen of Shanks just now was only the appetizers. In no way do I think any of what we saw is even a fraction of what Shanks has within his bag. And I think that's super important to understand. I remember a time when we thought Kaido had an endless bag of tricks, and his introduction was not even as close to being this versatile. Shanks, through some combination of observation haki and Conqueror's haki, sent a signal to Aramaki to deter him and make him shake and honestly hurt him. This blast of Conqueror's haki also imparted an image in Luffy's mind about who it was, which is an interesting addition to that power that Shanks showed. Then in 1079, Shanks literally flew like a bullet, and I'm not a pixel scaler by any means, but the distance and time it took him to get there, it's almost like he was light itself here. And he finished it off with a simple divine departure that was strong enough that the splash.
Yo, Shanks did get there hella quick though. Yo, Shanks literally jumped. The next time we seen him, he was right there. Right in Kid's face.
Splash damage incapacitated killer, a Onigashima rooftop contender, and the haki blast completely took out the rest of the crew. It's honestly kind of impressive that Heat and Wire withstood this amount of Conqueror's haki, which is probably the only demerit on Shanks' record here. But maybe that was intentional. I mean, Shanks needed to keep someone awake to hand him the poneglyph rubbings, right? But anyways, the point is,
I mean, or you could be lowballing Demerit or whatever is, or not Demerit or whatever his name is, right? You could be low. He could just be strong enough to withhold, you know what I mean, Conqueror's haki. You know, like kind of like Whitebeard's crew, right? Like when Shanks shows up, most of Whitebeard's crew fall out, but there's a good bit of guys who don't fall out, right? Like Marco, of course, Jozu, Vista, the main suspects, but you know, maybe what's the name is just a little bit stronger than we would give him credit for. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a knock I wouldn't count that as a knock against Shanks though. The fact that dude didn't pass out, I would probably consider that more of like a green flag on the other crewmates that didn't fall out. You know what I mean?
Is Shanks literally opened the door into the last saga. Shanks is the window that Oda wants to take us through for the end of One Piece, which is so fitting because Shanks is technically the one who inspired our pirate journey ever since chapter 1. Since then, Luffy's goal was to surpass Shanks, but also there will be a variety of characters that would lead up to Shanks' level, and several other characters that breach this and shock the fandom. Most characters that have been hidden until now probably are of this tier, are close, or surprisingly above this benchmark. Choose wisely who you think is where on this spectrum of power because it'll break a lot of agendas, but I'm of the opinion that if or when Kaido or Big Mom re-enter the story, they will be upscaled to this level if not higher. And while that is an anime trope, I think there is
I kind of agree with that, Par. I kind of agree with that. I think if Big Mom and Kaido come back, they're going to be like, to me, the downfall of Big Mom and Kaido and Wano was more of a underestimation. Like they underestimated the Pirate Alliance, right? They underestimated Luffy and all that. So it eventually caught up to them because by the time they realized, like, okay, Luffy, like these guys have come to fight, right? They was already, like, Kaido specifically was already pretty worn down. He was fighting the Scabbers. He fought the Supernova in the group, and he fought Yamato. He fought Kaido or Luffy, Yamato, and Momonosuke. He fought like a combination of different people, just a bunch of times. So it's just like eventually he got worn down, and it's like then he might have got a little serious at that point. But at this next time he sees Luffy, if he's an enemy or whoever he fights, it might just be straight seriousness. Like he's probably going to take you serious from the get-go, because there was a few times Kaido could have killed Luffy or just the Supernova in general, but they was working as a team, so it made it a lot difficult to really get a clean hit on anybody, because if, let's say, Kaido try to Thunder Bagua Luffy, Law would like use his ability to get Luffy out of there. You know what I mean? And I think a few of those attacks that Kaido sent Luffy's way could have probably done the same thing that Shanks did to Kid. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, Kaido actually defeated Luffy a bunch of times. So it's, like twice in the same fight. So it ain't like he didn't defeat him. It's like the fight with the record with Kaido and Luffy is like 3-1, something like that.
In in-story reasoning for why they would randomly become super strong again. But that discussion is for a video topic with a different focus. What I want to focus on are things that Shanks demonstrated and why it's so significant, but also why it was predicted on.
And when you also think about it, Kaido never like showed Devil Fruit Awakening. He never really showcased any haki after saying what he said about haki. So next time we see Kaido, we could see a Devil Fruit Awakening. And then that could be the true power of Kaido, right? And we could also see some haki awakening from Kaido that he might not have shown us, because how I see it, maybe I just think that Kaido didn't believe that he was going to lose, so he didn't need to he didn't have to resort to his Devil Fruit Awakening or his haki awakening. I think a lot of it was pride with Kaido. It was pride. His pride is what cost him that fight, in my opinion.
On this channel and why that's important to understand the ending of the last saga. This will also contain some details from Film Red that are canon to the manga. So let's get started. Something I'll expand on at a later time is the pattern of how Oda introduces us to power. For example, Doflamingo was introduced as a character who is all-encompassing, controlling, manipulating, and most importantly, knowledgeable of the world and how power worked. So understandably, as we left the Dressrosa arc, Doflamingo showed us the ceiling of power at the time, which was an awakening that allowed him to use his power to literally control the environment and hinged on his understanding of his power. So on top of his versatility when when it comes to power, but also environmental control from a soul standpoint. We go to Whole Cake Island, where Big Mom also demonstrates some insane levels of powers that truthfully Luffy did not tackle head on there. And there are still some question mark moments that I feel like can be explained later on. But obviously the main
Bruh, Big Mom still probably she has to have top 3 most Hex devil fruits in the series, bruh. Like, I was watching a recent episode. I can't remember what episode number it was, but it was the episode where it was after they Kid and Law used their devil fruit awakening, and it just reminded, like, seeing Big Mom able to take like a year off her life and then like use it as a power up. Like, bro, she could just use power. She could just play with her lifespan and use it as a power up, right? She was able to just, she used her, what was it, soul focus, something like that, where she just grabbed the souls of all the guys around her and use that to just make a bunch of homies and to empower her current homies. And then she used like a year off her life to make herself bigger and more powerful. Bro, come on now. Like, and not only that, the fact that she could create homies, bro. She could literally create warriors to fight for her. Powerful warriors. Zeus, Prometheus, Hera. These are some powerful beings. Like, hockey doesn't, it was shown that hockey doesn't work against them. Bruh, like, I tell you, man, that soul fruit, what is it, the Sora no Me or whatever? 2 Hex, bro. It's 2 Hex. You know, I want to see Big Mom. I really do hope Big Mom return, though. I really do hope she returned. You know, I really do like her devil fruit, bro.
Protagonist for Luffy and Whole Cake Island was Katakuri, who was introduced to us as a cool, calm, collected Bamf type of persona, but emphasis on cool and calm because that ended up being the exact power-up that our hot-headed main character, Luffy, needed to attain in order to start seeing into the future, which was the next ceiling achieved by this arc. Then the same thing happened with Kaido, where Kaido demonstrated an impressive ability that demonstrated why even someone like Big Mom regards him as a conqueror like no other. And the reason Kaido was able to do that was because somehow he could incorporate his conqueror's will within every attack, which means that, like the attack insinuates, his attacks literally conquer anyone who cannot imitate it. And then we see Luffy incorporate his own conqueror's will within his attacks, and thus raising the next ceiling of power, where even Zoro, a character we estimate to be a contender for the top echelons of the world, is also able to demonstrate it by the end of this arc. And so naturally we should expect that the next arcs will raise the ceiling even more and build off of the previous arcs. And with that, now we have Shanks. 1055 and 1079 are the introduction. And so again, let's put that into perspective. In chapter 1055, from a minimum of a few hundred miles away, Shanks shows the ability to sense people, individuals even, as we can understand from the fact that he was able to pinpoint his Conqueror's Haki lightning to perfectly hit Aramaki. Like every other antagonist before,
that got me thinking. Like you said, you talking about how he's able to like sense. Does Shanks have like the same observation haki as Usopp? You know, because I made a statement on a previous reaction video that, you know, like so far we seen 2 types of observation hakis, or we seen observation haki being used in 2 different ways, right? We seen like Luffy and guys like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, they use it as more of a precog way, right? Like they could sense an attack they could sense an attack before it happens, kind of like spider senses, right? And that's how Luffy has always used it. And it ended up being pushed to being able to see a few seconds into the future, more than just like maybe a split second into the future. You had Katakuri, who's shown Luffy how to see a couple seconds into the future, right? So, but then a different way we seen observation haki being used is like Usopp. where Usopp can sense the presence of people, regardless where they're at, right? Within a certain different distance, probably. You know, so if Shanks was able to sense where Green Bull was, I'm thinking he was using observation hockey similar to Usopp in that scenario, right? But I will also think, based on how Shanks fights, he uses observation hockey similar to Luffy as well, where it's that more precog ability where you could see, you know, a little bit into the future. Shanks could probably see. Shanks probably got future sight as well, where you could see, where it's probably even better than Katakuri, honestly. So, that's a possibility. But I bring that up to say, could a character use both type of observation hockey? Use observation hockey the way Luffy uses it, and then use observation hockey the way Usopp uses it. Is that possible? Right? So Shanks could be the answer to that, honestly. Because when we seen Green Bull, he had to know where Green Bull's location was. So I would think he had to use it like Usopp. But then since Shanks is a very hand-to-hand type fighter, I would also think he would use observation hockey the same way Luffy and most other characters we've seen use it, in that more precog fashion, or even seeing into the future fashion.
We are being introduced to something new, but more similarly to Rayleigh's introduction to the Straw Hats, something completely foreign and unique. Yes, we know enough about hockey to understand what is happening, but do we? See, while most people created a new term to contextualize what happened here, naming it Wi-Fi hockey, my viewers and this channel had a name preset for it if it were to ever show up into the story, and that would be Mind Rope. This is still one of my favorite videos, and you might be wondering where I pulled that term from, and why that's related to observation hockey or this scene. But essentially, observation hockey was introduced to us as mantra, and mantra actually translates to what I simplified to mind rope. And I would go watch that video to get a fuller understanding of it, but for the sake of time here, it's a
mind rope. Kind of like that. I also had my own thoughts on this, right? I think me and Elids talked about it. We know of the thing called the voice of all things, where you can almost hear the will of things, right? So I was thinking, like, you got the voice of all things, which is pretty much a special type of ear, right? Where you could hear certain things. You could probably say it's observation hockey to a degree as well, but it's more has to do, instead of observing, more hearing, right? I also said, maybe you can also, there's an ability where you could call out. You could use your hockey to call out to something. It's kind of like Luffy when he was in the ocean, and it's like he used his voice to call out to Law's crew, right? Who were in the submarine, the Polar Tang. So it's kind of like you're using your hockey to send frequencies or send messages, you know what I'm saying? And Luffy did that, same arc, Wano arc, he did that while he was unconscious in the water, right? So it's just being able to send your will, right? Send your will. So to me, what Shanks did was something similar, but to a higher degree, where he's able to send a big blast of Conqueror's hockey. Instead of just sending his voice, he could send a big blast of Conqueror's hockey. But I like that term mind rope. I like that term mind rope. But I also think it might have something, it might be connected to the voice of all things. Cause we see it from when we see the voice of all things, we see it from the receiving end, right? For you hearing, you picking up a signal, where what Luffy did when he was unconscious, sinking to the bottom of the sea, and what Shanks did was more of a sending the signal, right? So that was always like, I remember doing the stream with me and Eliz, and we talked about that. And but I like this term mind rope. Wi-Fi hockey ain't bad either though. Wi-Fi hockey is very simple and catchy.
Essentially the idea that there seems to be an importance of creating an empathy link with someone, something Luffy seems to do naturally and even Rayleigh emphasized when it came to Future Sight. And my interpretation was that in order for Future Sight to work really well, you have to understand your opponent. The better you can do that, the more effective Future Sight will be, and we saw that as Luffy grew in Future Sight during his fight with Katakuri. They also grew in understanding of each other.
That's wild you said that, because when Rayleigh was teaching Luffy about like observation hockey, and Rayleigh says something about like, hey, you know, what would you do if you come across somebody who could see into the future? This was like during the time skip, bro. This was doing, and Luffy said one of the, like, this is why I love Luffy, because people look at Luffy as an idiot, but I think it's the exact opposite. Luffy is a genius, and Luffy's most powerful trait is his ability to just like understand people, right? Like he understand people from a way that most people can't understand people. Like it's not a very, like he doesn't understand people from like a or orthodox way. Like his way of understanding people is unorthodox. Like he knows what to say to people at the right time. Like remember he punched Vivi and told her like, hey, you need to like stop worrying about people dying. Like people are going to die. Stop that. Like he said, like that was exactly what Vivi needed to hear, right? But going back to what Rayleigh was telling Luffy about Future Sight, Luffy said one of the most interesting things I've heard him say. It was deep because it was coming from Luffy, and I'm like, damn, that's deep. He was like, Rayleigh was like, what are you gonna do when you come across somebody who read the future or whatever? And he was like, it depends. You know, what kind of person are they? You know, how do they feel? It just shows you how in touch Luffy is when it comes to people, like on a deeper level than just the surface. Like a lot of times you think Luffy's just kind of dumb, he tunes you out, all that stuff. But he like can understand who people are at their core. Like he could like read you, he could meet you and kind of understand if you're a good person or if you're a bad person off rip. You know, like not many people could do that. He can do that. Like, and that's why I think when like he just automatically trusts people like he did with X Drake, even though X Drake was previously a villain, like previously an enemy to him. And he was like, oh, can I trust you? And then Drake was like, yeah. And everybody was like, what? Like you automatically trusting him? I think it wasn't just him like just blindly trusting somebody. I think he could truly read X Drake and tell that like he means what he says. You know what I'm saying? And I think there was some other situations where he's trusted somebody where a lot of people would look at it as a blind trust, but he was able to really truly read the person's intention. So that's why he was able to trust him, you know? And I think that's one of my favorite characteristics about Luffy that I don't believe get talked about enough. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think he's so great with attracting people. You know, I'm sorry I had to go on a Luffy-gasm for a second, a little Luffy tangent, but he's a better character than people give him credit for. That was my only purpose of going on that tangent.
Other, which is why Katakuri conceded to Luffy and Luffy respected Katakuri by the end of it. And so while that is relevant here, the other things I said in that video was that Mind Orb would be a way for people to essentially telepathically communicate, similar to how Zunisha communicated to Momo or Viola transferred memories to Sanji. Thereafter, we saw Luffy and Momo do this during Onigashima, but in 1055, we saw that Aramaki was able to essentially understand Shanks' intentions and words, whether coincidentally or because that was Shanks' way will being transferred through his haki. But what's even crazier is that since Luffy knows Shanks, he was better able to sense Shanks and said that a face came to mind, which is literally what Zunisha and Viola were able to do, and I said would happen in the future with Shanks, making a parallel to Ki Sense from Dragon Ball, which plays an obvious influence for the One Piece story. And so I think that scene was an introduction to the ability to pinpoint on someone with mind rope. And what's super crazy was that a viewer, Juxtaplicity, brought something interesting to my attention in my live stream for 1079. It was that Shanks read about Kid's history, seemingly gaining an understanding of his rampaging nature prior to using his future sight to seeing Kid literally go on a rampage on his fleet. He was able to see into the future of Kid's action for a minimum of 10 seconds, but possibly even more, which is more than what Katakuri demonstrated. So Shanks in his introduction demonstrated an ability even beyond the end stage of Katakuri. But the overall point was that the reason why he was reading about Kid was so he could understand, learn, and thereafter see into Kid's future a little bit, and that came to use right after, which could be demonstrating an aspect of mind rope. And that might sound crazy, but if you had watched film Red, then you know in that movie Shanks treated Katakuri like a baby when it came to his future sight ability, which we know because of his canon information from Volume 4 Billion. For those of you who still don't know what that is, think of it as VVR cards given to moviegoers in Japan prior to film Red theater experience. And so let me insert this prediction that I made in my mind rope video real quick that I had about Shanks. All agree that Shanks and his
to kind of go off your mind rope, I think a mind rope, like I think it could kind of go both ways, right? Like I think observation hockey in a sense kind of forces a mind rope, right? Like it kind of forces you, like I'm trying to figure out a way to say this because it like you're creating that link with somebody in order to tell what they're about to do to a degree. But and I can't. I had a thought for that, but I kind of lost my train of thought. So I'm gonna just put that. I'm gonna put that thought I had on ice because I kind of lost the train of thought I had.
His entire crew showing up at Marineford the way they did, unnoticed by literally everyone, is not a normal situation. Like the other iconic scene that we've seen of Shanks is him having such overwhelming presence that people literally could not ignore him walking on Whitebeard's ship. He seemed to do that intentionally to assert himself and prove himself to his old captain's rival. But if he had such profound control of his haki, it wouldn't be surprising if he could erase his presence too. It wasn't just Shanks either, his whole crew was a surprise. And on top of that, their entire boat showed up at Marineford despite being a whole sea away. It could be a single person on their crew has an ability that makes all of this possible, or maybe having several peak hockey users allows them to imitate.
Maybe Lucky Roo, man. You know, Lucky Roo was stated to be, I think at one point he was stated to be the fastest character or one of the fastest characters. I don't really remember, but maybe that speed is due to some devil fruit ability, maybe, you know. But I see that's why I see you got Lucky Roo, so I'm thinking you kind of on the same you on the same page as me.
Devil fruit powers. And the reason why that is important is because on Shanks' Volume 4 Billion release, we see that Oda says that Shanks is known as the observation hockey killer, and ultimately through some means is able to prevent future sight and prevent people from sensing him, which we saw him essentially use.
Oh, so that's like okay, so I think I stated earlier that there was somebody who said like, cause I've always touted like the possibility that Mihawk has the best observation hockey in the series, right? Especially being connected with a hawk, right? And his eyes probably grant him this ridiculous level of observation hockey. Eam probably has it as well, right? Because Eam has similar eyes to Mihawk. And then I remember hearing somebody say like, I can't remember who it was. Like I don't even know if I know the person. It might have been somebody else probably shared the meme or something. But they said like the fight between Mihawk and Shanks probably went something like Mihawk constantly using his future sight observation, but Shanks constantly like canceling it out, and then Mihawk being frustrated because it's like he's telling Shanks like, "Yo, stop doing that." It was just something funny I heard somebody say. So like, it just seeing that whatever this was the One Piece Volume 4 billion, and it's talking about like Shanks being known as the killer of observation hockey. Maybe that's where they got that joke from or whatever.
Some means is able to prevent future sight and prevent people from sensing him, which we saw him essentially use when he entered the Gorosei's room. So while I don't think this is a power that is achieved through observation hockey and rather it's through his insane Conqueror's hockey, I think he is able to do it because of the mind robe concept. He is able to prevent someone from calmly sensing the future because of intimidation from his Conquerors, but we've seen what happens when people are overwhelmed by Conquerors. They just get knocked out. But what I'm saying is in between being knocked out and not being affected at all, there's probably a plethora of effects rooted in this ability, and one of them is preventing people who can see the future from accessing that power. When Katakuri said you had to be calm and Rayleigh mentioned Luffy's ability to be tuned into emotions, I think Shanks has a power of fear that he can instill to make someone emotionally unstable, thus weakening their hockey. If you are resolved against that level of Conquerors, then you will be fine, but there's probably not many who can get to that level. And to just explain another point of connection for the mind rope ability, it's slated in communication, that actually Yasopp demonstrated with Usopp in Film Red. So in my video, I was saying people who understand each other and have a synergy will be able to communicate telepathically. And while I did,
it made me think though, like that you said something that just kind of made me think. Like we talking about like honing your hockey, like how Shanks has been able to hone his hockey to such the highest level. Do you guys believe that having a devil fruit could hinder one's growth, right? I don't believe it like puts a ceiling on your growth, but I think it makes it, because and the reason why I think yes and no, because I think Luffy is very proficient in hockey in general, but if Luffy didn't have a devil fruit, could he be even better at hockey, right? Because it would make it to where he's more reliant on his hockey, meaning he would have to focus on it a lot more to be strong, right? And that's I think that's kind of that would be kind of the logic behind it. Like it's like if you don't have a devil fruit, you're forced to depend on your hockey, right? And since you're forced to depend on it, you don't have that devil fruit as a crutch, because a lot of devil fruit users, they use their abilities, they use their devil fruit as a crutch, you know. So it makes it to where you're a lot less motivated to work on your hockey, since you got, especially depending on your devil fruit, you're a little less motivated to do it, you know. So I think that might be more the realistic case. Because guys like Shanks, guys like Zoro, guys like Sanji, well, a little less than Sanji, because Sanji is kind of, he got like science going for him as well. But these type of guys, like, they don't have a devil fruit to rely on. So it's like they have to focus on their, on like hockey and their like actual fighting skill more so. So I think that's the more likely case. Because, I think Luffy's hockey is pretty strong, and it's consistently getting stronger. You know what I mean? So I think by the end of the series, Luffy might have top 3, top 5 hockey. You know what I'm saying? In the series, if not top 1. You know, if not top 1. So yeah, I think devil fruits make people a little lazier with their hockey. So I think that's probably the more realistic case, because I don't see why like somebody with a devil fruit couldn't focus on their hockey and train it to be the same level as Shanks, right?
didn't personally enjoy how they displayed it in the movie, Yasopp was able to communicate with Usopp and share each other's vision telepathically, but more than that, through separate dimensions, which might sound wild to you and so alien to One Piece, but I think now with Space Piece, but with Shanks also showing up in the way he has and Egghead reveals, it shouldn't surprise you. But the point I want to get across is while the events of Film Red may not be canon, considering Oda clarified hockey feats prior to the movie, and how moves from movies end up canon to the show, especially of the main characters. With one more thing on top, the director of the movie knows how One Piece ends. I wouldn't be surprised if these instances of crazy powers are windows into what the last saga holds, and that's ultimately the point I wanted to get to. This was Shanks' introduction, which already reaches to levels unheard of in One Piece when you break it down. It may just look like clashes on the panels, but there's a lot that's behind it. And that's where I want to reiterate. If this is what Shanks has shown us, then these are examples of what powers will look like towards the end of One Piece. Or at least the ceiling that Shanks will show us, not unlike the other antagonists of the past. But what's crazy is, we still haven't seen everything we know Shanks to be capable of within the manga itself. And there's actually two things that we haven't seen in the manga yet. The first one is obviously the observation haki killer, which means we still don't have the means within the story to fully understand that, but the other part is in volume 4 billion. Oda said that Shanks is able to create a flame sword with no other explanation given, which if you heard me literally anywhere, you know I'm a huge supporter of the elemental haki theory, where I've debated all the creators over it, including my combined probably 8 hours of streams with King of Lightning, and with Ragnar I debated with him at Jay's Reverie.
Elemental haki theory is, I feel like me and Elids have talked about something similar, as well as like hockey. Cause like Eliz is definitely a big proponent, and I'm with him on that as well. He's definitely a big proponent of being able to create abilities with hockey, kind of like Sanji, right? Sanji could ignite his leg on fire. Now a lot of people, you know, I've heard theories about Sanji possibly being like a Lunarian or having Lunarian biology in him. Which, if that's the case, I mean, that would also make sense of how he can ignite his leg in the fire as well. Seeing how Lunarians, they can ignite their backs in the fire, right? But what about Zoro, right? Zoro's able to manifest an Ashura form. It's not a devil fruit ability, but he literally has a form where he can manifest 2 extra heads, 2 extra set of arms, and 2 extra set of legs, and even more swords, right? So how is Zoro doing that? Or Brook's connection with ice, right? Brook he uses ice a lot. Now, Brook being more connected with the underworld, right? And the underworld, you know, some people, you know, death being like cold, right? Like a lot of people connect death with coldness, right? And Brook is very close with death. So, because he died and he came back to life. His devil fruit literally resurrected him. But yeah, Brook is able to use ice. You know, I believe all that is hockey related. So Shanks being able to ignite his sword in the fire, I agree. You know, and I think that's where Parvision is going with the hockey, the elemental hockey. You know what I mean? But just to take it further, it's just the idea of hockey being able to produce abilities, and devil fruits just being more of a shortcut or a cheat to gaining those abilities versus honing your hockey at a level to where you could create abilities. You know, like we also theorized the idea of devil fruits, the origins of devil fruits coming from people who were able to manifest these abilities through hockeys back in the ancient kingdom. Like maybe they were able to create abilities with their hockey, and then they died and were turned into devil fruits.
But if you know my Sanji video, then you know I expanded on the elemental haki theory by tying it to the emotions. And so the emotions that connect to fire we haven't seen yet from Shanks, despite how angry he got. But that is yet another ceiling that I think not only will Shanks raise for us, but also explain for us, which would be elemental haki. And one thing that is for certain is that it seems like Shanks is a master of also blending haki, which is what Kaido was saying Gear 5 Luffy was doing with armament and conquers. And I think Shanks will show us a lot of interesting things with observation haki and everything else. Which, now bringing back the observation haki killer aspect here, I think something important about observation haki was, if we are right about Shanks, Mind Rope, and what he did with Kid in chapter 1079, then I think Shanks' future sight is beyond 10 seconds. See, unlike elemental haki, we actually have the upper limit of future sight, that if Shanks had, then it would explain so much about him, Mihawk, and Blackbeard. So if this future sight moment for Kid was the introduction, then we have Madame Charlie, who is able to see years into the future several times. And what's even crazier is, whatever the resource is on Laugh-Tale, it was able to convince.
Yeah, I believe that's definitely observation hockey right there. Like Madame Shirley's ability to see into the future so long. Cause like I think a lot of normal people they're in tune with certain hockey, right? Like, they may not necessarily know how to use hockey in a level like that most fighters do. But like, let's say Madame Shirley, like, she's probably naturally in tune with observation hockey, and that's what gives her the ability to see into the future. I think there was also like there was like a little girl in Skypiea. She did something where she was able to hear like voices that were like suffering. I forget her name, but yeah, and she probably has like a some type of hockey, right? And then you have like Poseidon, Shirahoshi, like her ability to communicate with Sea Kings, or Momonosuke's ability to communicate with Zunisha, right? Like, these could be, like, I'm of the belief that these are hockey level things that are specific to them, maybe because of their like lineage, right? Like, maybe it's like their ability, like with Shirahoshi, she probably uses Mon Rope, or not Mon Rope. Yeah, is it Mon Rope? I think that's the word Parvision used, Mon Rope. So I would say Shirahoshi uses a form of Mind Rope, or maybe like something similar, Voice of All Things or something, to connect with the Sea Kings and then command them. Same with Momonosuke, you know what I mean? But they're so specific to these specific characters, maybe because of a bloodline trait, you know?
Odin and foretell the events of Wano 800 years ahead of time, and 20 years before Odin's story ended, which would be future sight of some sort. These are two levels of insane future sight, but unlike the Void Century version, we see Madame Charlie, who can see these futures and is correct, but was so burdened by her power that she almost gave it up. She was afraid of the power, almost in a hermit fashion, by shunning her own capabilities, and also freaking out whenever she used it again. And you know what character has a similar vibe of having the capabilities but is cautiously adjacent to the storyline? Shanks. It might be that when Shanks gets to know a character, he can see their future and he suffers the burden of that. Which is why Shanks detaches and separates himself from what seems to be all of the people he loves. Which is why we see a reclusive hermit like Shanks chilling on a random island. This might even be how he chooses people for his fleet, but also be why he doesn't see them often. But if we were to look at a parallel of chapter 1071 and chapter 1, then the moment Shanks flew from Elbaf was the same as him flying from Fuchsia Village, which was something I brought up in the past. We still don't know how he got to Luffy, and it could make sense that if he had future sight there, he gave up his arm for some future way ahead of time. And similarly with Kid, after reading about his past, this was the path that Kid needed to grow beyond this. Because surely, with how strong Shanks was, when you're that much stronger, you don't need to kill somebody, which he did.
I wonder if Shanks has like Skywalk, if he gets Skywalk, and that's how he gets placed so fast. But it's like he's way faster than somebody like Sanji with it, though. You know what I mean? Like, where he doesn't even have to like kick off the air that often like Sanji does. Like, he could just kick like once and go like a long distance at a fast speed.
didn't do, but also at the same time, if he wanted Kid dead, he could have just killed them instead of having the Giants essentially reset the Kid pirate crew. But the reason why I think this future sight thing is inherent in Shanks is it would explain why Shanks acted the way he did with Whitebeard. When Shanks met Whitebeard, he said now is not the time to pit those two against each other, speaking about Ace and Blackbeard. No one will be able to stop this new era from spiraling into chaos. I wonder if Shanks saw from then the events of Marineford and why he showed up to then tell Kobe that his few seconds of courage will profoundly influence the fate of this world. Was that Shanks hinting at a future he saw and Kobe standing up in that moment changed it? If this is the power Shanks has, then this could explain some parts of what his conversation with Roger was after Roger came back from Laughtail. It might have been confirming a future sight that Shanks saw, and that's what brought Shanks to tears. But more importantly, let's talk about this interaction with Blackbeard. See, I think the reason why Shanks and Mihawk is an interesting matchup is because Mihawk seems to have insane observation haki as related to his epithet Hawkeyes and clairvoyant, and just how calm he is. But if Shanks has observation,
Par, I gotta ask you something, Par. I gotta ask you something. I gotta ask you something because I see you got that one moment I talked about earlier with Shank, where like when Luffy seen that his arms gonna get cut off by Mihawk, right? Now I'm of the belief that Mihawk probably instilled future sight into Luffy. Like that's what I'm of the belief. But we also know that hockey blooms in extreme situations. So it could be either Luffy was able to bloom his future sight hockey because how extreme and intense the situation was, or Mihawk instilled the image of Luffy's arm getting cut off into Luffy, like pretty much showing Luffy what he sees, right? Because maybe like Mihawk didn't want to cut off Luffy's arms, but he knew he would if Luffy attacked. Because I mean, in that box, you even got Mihawk's like his eye. We get to see his eye before it happens. So that's why I'm of the belief that it's probably Mihawk doing that to Luffy, as far as giving him that future sight. But maybe you say in the video, I'm gonna play it. Maybe you say in the video, but I'm curious at what you think on that.
observation haki killing powers, then it might be a good counter to Mihawk, but at the same time, Mihawk could be strong enough to resist Shanks' power. And similarly, Shanks said his guard wasn't down against Blackbeard when Blackbeard gave him the scar on his eye. So what I think is if Shanks relies on future sight and observation haki the way he did in 1079, it might make sense that Blackbeard has a power as well that confuses Shanks. It could be that Blackbeard might be able to show 3 futures or something like that, and so Shanks was caught off guard, and this would make sense because of what was said in 1079.
I don't know. I don't know, like, cause I'm of the belief that Blackbeard has multiple souls or personalities living in the one body. 3 to be exact. One of them I think might be Zebek. I think that maybe something with those souls, maybe a conflict, or I don't know, something going on within his bodies and these multiple souls probably either confused Shanks or maybe he tricked Shanks. Like maybe one of his souls, maybe they're able to leave his body or something, and maybe they could attack him without him even realize. There's this anime, I think it's the correct anime I'm thinking of, Afro Samurai, right? I think there's this one villain who killed Afro's father, right? And he had like an ability where he had like an extra arm, but you know, it's like people don't notice. Like it's like an extra arm in his stomach or something where he could like get you with like a surprise attack, you know? And I was thinking of something like that with Blackbeard. Like maybe he has like an extra arm from one of his other personalities or souls that can attack you without you realizing it. But I don't know.
Shanks said that he thought Blackbeard would be at Wano, but he didn't show up. So it might be that when it comes to fate, Blackbeard has a...
Bro, I'm with you, Shanks. I thought Blackbeard was going to be at Wano too.
a mysterious power that allows him to be unreadable for Shanks, which makes complete sense for his character. And all of that brings me back to Shanks' character, because ultimately I think the reason why Shanks is him, the reason why Shanks is a tier above every other character we have seen until now in the modern One Piece era, is because of one simple thing: resolve. The reason why I said Shanks is stronger than Kaido is because the Kaido we saw was a broken man. You cannot be resolved if you yourself are not a steadfast, stable character. We saw an interesting...
You know something, Par? You said something that actually kind of spoke to me, Because me, I think Kaido is more powerful than Shanks. I do. I'm not. I'm a believer in that. I think Kaido is the world's strongest creature, at least knowable. At least as far as the characters that we know of, because Eam could be that as well. But that's actually an interesting point. Kaido might have been somewhat nerfed by the damage in his resolve, which resolve I think is important when it comes to hockey. You got because your resolve is part of your will, hockey, all that stuff. But when it comes to Kaido, Kaido does seem a bit broken, right? Like not broken as far as like his abilities are broken. I mean, like he seems like a bit of a broken individual because he lost people that he respected, that he wanted to kill, or he wanted to kill him, right? Also, Kaido, the difference with Kaido, like one thing about Kaido, and this is separate from the resolve. Kaido, he tanks punches, like he's not like somebody who is going to try to attack. He's not going to try to beat you off rip. He'll let you attack him first before he beats you. So, and he could underestimate, right? He could underestimate people. Where Shanks, what we seen from Shanks, when Shanks is serious, it's no playing with Shanks. There's no playing. There's no play. There's no, I'm going to let you get some hits off on me. Nah, I'm beating you. I'm handling you right off grip.
Interesting thing where Luffy said Kaido's haki was getting stronger while he was unstable and drunk, which could be something he needs to use to ignore his shortcomings, which he told us a lot about out loud. It seemed that Kaido had an unresolved issue that he desired so badly to be fixed despite forcing the opposite, and that's where I think Shanks is ultimately different. And Roger was similar in this regard. In my opinion, Roger was strong because not only was he dead set in making it to his goal, but he also had a time limit pressuring him.
I also want to say some also like tells me that Kaido deep down inside, like something deep down inside in Kaido wanted to be defeated by Luffy. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I know he did fight Luffy. He was fighting Luffy and all that stuff. But something tells me deep down inside, Kaido wanted to be defeated by Luffy and possibly killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I kind of do agree. I do agree with your resolve argument a bit, because I think Kaido deep down inside wanted to defeat Luffy, because each time Luffy came back, he got excited, and when he defeated Luffy, he cried. He cried after beating Luffy. Why would you cry defeating somebody in combat? Unless you wanted to be defeated. I mean, you can say he cried because he wanted a better fight. I guess that could be argued as well. But, I think Kaido kind of nerfed himself by wanting to be defeated. Like, that's what, like, we know this man tried to kill himself so many times. So I don't think that's a stretch to say. Like, he literally, that's like his hobby to try to kill himself, So I don't think that's a stretch to say.
Having the resolve to complete something no one else in the world has done while dying is no small feat, and I think Shanks has something similar. I think Shanks sees a future that he is trying to change, and because of how insanely hellish that future is, Shanks is ultimately resolved to sacrifice himself for it. In comparison, Kid is just some greedy little kid to him, and there's no way his resolve would ever match Shanks in this time frame. And that's where two lines stand out. First, in chapter 1079, Ben Beckman, Shanks' right hand, casually looks at Shanks saying he probably saw an ugly future. While Shanks is stressed, Ben is actually smiling, probably understanding that this is a reoccurring theme with Shanks. Shanks is fighting an ugly or hellish future. And the reason why that's important is because if I asked you who Shanks' enemy is, who would you say? I think that's an important question.
Who is Shanks? I want to try to get down to this question before I hear your answer. Who is Shanks' enemy? I would say Shanks' enemy is a terrible future. You know, it might not necessarily be an individual person. It might be more of like a potential future, right? Like he's there to, like you said, he's there to stop a future. And if the wrong person finds the One Piece, that could lead to a potential bad future if the wrong person reaches Laugh Tale and finds the One Piece. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily an individual that might be Shanks's. To answer your question, I don't think it's necessarily an individual. More so, maybe a concept or I don't want to say ideal. Maybe I guess you could say ideology or something. But you know, like a potential future. You know, that's what I'll go with.
Question, because when you try to resolve against something, you should know who you're fighting. You should know your enemy. When I think of the previous antagonists, they are so small-sighted in comparison to Shanks. The ones that were scary had larger-than-life plans, but they didn't even know who they were fighting. Kaido was resolved against the world government. Doflamingo was a puppet master fighting the world, and maybe Doflamingo was the closest thing to Shanks, except Doflamingo didn't believe.
Was Doflamingo a puppet master, or was he really a puppet? That's the real question. No, I'm joking. I'm just trying to be deep right now. Don't mind that. Don't mind me there. I'm just trying to be deep.
Believe in a new era. So again, who is Shanks' enemy? I think Shanks' enemy is the future. Shanks sees an enemy that no one else sees and has been fighting the hardest thing, the literal future of the world. And Shanks actually told us that himself. In chapter 434, let me read part.
I mean, when you think about it, right, he was really close to Goldie Roger, so he probably learned a lot, right? He, like, Goldie Roger probably, like, let him know, like, man, you know, we gotta make sure this bro's, you know, because, like, just think of everything that Roger learned, reading the poneglyphs, finding the One Piece, all that stuff. Even though Shanks wasn't there with the One Piece, but, you know, Shanks was there for the other stuff. And not only that, maybe Goldie Roger, like, hinted at a potential future, like a bad future, if like the wrong person if the wrong person found the One Piece, maybe that's what Roger hit it to Shanks and maybe Buggy, right? So Shanks, it just stuck with Shanks, you know.
Part of this conversation that I'll be rereading many times in the next few videos. But Whitebeard says, there aren't many who speak of the legend anymore. Your duel with Hawkeye is still fresh in my memory. Everyone was surprised beyond their imagination when you came back from East Blue missing an arm. And Whitebeard asks, what enemy did you give that left arm to? And Shanks responds, this, I gave it up for the sake of the new era. And Whitebeard says, as long as you don't have any regrets, that's fine. So in that moment, Shanks basically answered that his enemy is anything that prevents the new era. And he has no regrets doing that. And that makes sense. Every time Shanks steps in, it's to protect the new.
And when you think about it, who in the story is the biggest threat to the future? You know what I'm saying? Like who in the story, if you think about, like, is Shanks the most terrified of for the potential future they could bring? I don't think it's Eam, and I think Shanks might be privy. I don't know if Shanks is like know who Eam is or ever seen him, but he might be privy that there is somebody pulling the strings above the Gorosei. If anybody's privy to that, I would believe it's either Shanks or Doflamingo, right? Like, I think those two characters probably might, they might know a little bit about Eam, even if it's just a little bit. Like they might not be able to confirm it, but they might know a little bit. They might know it's somebody there, right? But the person who Shanks is usually the most wary of is Blackbeard. And why? I always say I think Blackbeard is probably the second biggest candidate to finding the One Piece and becoming Pirate King next to Luffy. Now I think story wise, Luffy is going to be it. You know what I'm saying? But don't be shocked if Blackbeard actually reaches Laugh Tale first and find the One Piece first, and then Luffy and Blackbeard has to fight over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be surprised. And then Luffy wins at the end. But if Blackbeard has the One Piece or possession of the One Piece, even for a short time, don't be shocked, right? And I think Blackbeard, because Blackbeard, I think is Blackbeard and Luffy are similar because they both believe in freedom, but Luffy's version of freedom is different from Blackbeard's version of freedom. Blackbeard's version of freedom is more like chaos and anarchy, and pirates run like pirates who have like bad intentions running everything. That's Blackbeard's intention, where Luffy is more freedom and anarchy, but more into like, hey, let's all work together and be friends and that type of stuff. Where Blackbeard is more like, he probably want a very dark and twisted future, but it's free and the pirates run everything. You know what I mean? So I think Shanks is really worried about the future that Blackbeard could bring, So in a sense, if you had to embody an individual to say who is Shanks's enemy, it's probably Blackbeard. But realistically, I would say it's a bad future.
New era, which means he is the one actively fighting against an enemy with 800 years of precedent and power. He is acting like a shield that comes in any time the new era is threatened. He isn't guiding it, he isn't pushing it, but he is standing out front. And most importantly, he has no regrets to sacrifice even his arm for it, to make a bet that wouldn't be fulfilled for another 14 years. To be able to do that, your willpower has to be next level. That is why Shanks is beyond every other character right now. There is no other character, not even Luffy, that has a resolve beyond personal desires to this extent. And beyond personal desires is arguably the most important thing. If Shanks can see all of these futures...
I don't know, man. Luffy does got a next level resolve, man. Like, that man could be... It could look like it's over for this man and he still believe he's going to be Pirate King. Like, the man could literally be dead and his soul could be at the door of Hades and he's still going to say he's going to be Pirate King, and then he comes back to life and, be Pirate King. Luffy does got a ridiculous resolve. But I see where you're going, though. I do see where you're going.
I wonder what kind of future he sees for himself. Is it a positive one? Depending on that context, that could add to his resolve. And everything goes back to the first thing Rayleigh told us about Haki. To never doubt, that is true power. Shanks is the character who made a bet 14 years ago on Luffy, and since then, he has been resolved. He has been unshaken and dominating. Every antagonist, even Luffy, has had doubt in the series, but Shanks is without a doubt the character that has been working towards a future and fighting against an enemy that no one else even sees. The man with true power. Willpower. This is the ceiling that Luffy has to overcome. Luffy has an unbreakable will, but it's been a will that has been developing over the series, growing. There is a reason why we call it a Haki bloom, right? The visual Luffy got when he discovered Advanced Conqueror's coding. It was flower petals. Shanks was waiting for Luffy to sprout and is going to show him the new ceiling for Luffy to grow towards and have himself replaced. A leader is one who sees more than others sees, who sees farther than others see, who sees before others see. And I think Shanks is that kind of a leader. I think just like Luffy showed us the next level of devil fruits with his Gear 5 awakening, Shanks will show us the next level with his haki. And as Kaido said, haki is everything. So I'm looking forward to see how the only devil fruitless emperor has ruled the oceans with just haki alone. And even more, why didn't he decide to conquer it like Roger did? And this conversation will continue in the coming videos. I will link all the reference videos and clips in the description below, but also I will be reworking a lot of these videos as I said I would the moment we get a glimpse of end stage characters demonstrating it. I feel like there's so much more I want to talk about, but I will when I get there. Thank you so much for all of your patience. If you enjoyed your time here, please leave a like and subscribe so that my channel can also have a haki bloom and impress Shanks. I'm still mind blown of how much of those past theories already came into fruition just based off of Shanks, and the elemental haki video is the one I'm reworking with all of the details I had included throughout my entire channel because I truly think elemental haki will be the next horizon that Shanks and the other mystery characters of the last saga will demonstrate. And I almost wonder if there's even more of a parallel here. Rayleigh was the one who demonstrated the next horizon of One Piece with haki and was also the teacher for Luffy to get him ready for that new world. I wonder if Shanks...
We still, what's up with Scopper, man? What's up with Scopper, though? We got Rayleigh. We ain't get Scopper yet. The left-hand man of Roger
is going to not just be the new horizon, but the mentor for Luffy to get him ready for the last saga and bring us to a romance dawn.
I low-key would like to see Scopper be the one to like do a little mentoring. Like if we had like a slight like it ain't got not a 2-year time skip, but maybe like a 1 month time skip, right? Where Scopper teaches Luffy like, I don't know, the next level of haki, or maybe how to use his devil fruit more proficient. I don't know. But Scopper would have to have a devil fruit because it wouldn't make sense for somebody who don't have a devil fruit to be teaching somebody with a devil fruit how to awaken it, you know. So maybe it'll just be like haki or something.
And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next Parvision.
Shout out to Parvision. Give the man a like. Y'all make sure y'all go like and go subscribe to this man. He makes great content. I don't even want to say video. I'm just saying content in general. The man makes great content. So good dude as well. You know, he's a friend to the channel. So y'all make sure y'all go support his community and everything. But man, so like a lot of great points. You know, it made me actually like it kind of got me viewing Shanks in a different way. I know sometimes I come off as a Shanks hater. I'm not a Shanks hater. I don't hate Shanks. I like Shanks. He's one of my favorite characters. It's just when it comes to Mihawk and Shanks, I like Mihawk more. That's just me right there, right? And I just don't like. I feel as though a lot of Shanks fans be hating on Mihawk, and I don't like that. So yeah, I do come off a little condescending about Shanks sometimes, but I feel as though some of y'all be pushing me to do it. You know what I'm saying? Cause y'all don't be putting no respect on Mihawk name when y'all talk about Shanks, and I don't like that. Cause I put respect on Shanks's name when I talk about Mihawk. I even say, hey man, you know, he probably is stronger than Mihawk, just not by a lot. You know, I just gotta preface that. But yeah, man, Shanks definitely. You know, Shanks, there's so many thoughts on Shanks, the future of Shanks. You know, like I've come up with theories about Shanks possibly dying, you know, the Black Bear. I think to me that would be very impactful to like Luffy's character, even though it'd be like an endgame thing. So, you know, it'd be a little late. It ain't like it's going to be able to, we're going to see it manifest as something bigger that's going to take years to actually culminate to something, right? Because it'll literally happen damn near the end of the series. But like Shanks being this like guardian or gatekeeper, it does make a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? Because we see how Shanks go and talk to the Gorosei. Like they're supposed to be enemies, but we got Shanks talking to the Gorosei. So for somebody to be willing to put his differences aside with like an organization that is supposed to be opposed to him, to go talk to them about something bigger, that really kind of shows Shanks's character. Like there's something he's worried about that's bigger than this feud and beef with the world government, right? Because he's willing to go to the world government to talk to them about something, you know? So it really shows like his character that he's like willing to not live by this, oh, we're enemies situation. We could put that to the side and try to come up with a solution that's going to benefit the future a lot better for everybody, right? So I think most of what Parvision said in this video, I do think he made a lot of great points. You know, like I said, I'm looking at Shanks in a different light, right? Like the idea that Shanks's biggest enemy is the future, and not necessarily the future, but a possible bad future. You know, that makes a lot of sense. You know, every time every time we see him act, it's always to protect a future. It's always like he goes to Marine Force, stop the war, like, hey, you know, like, chill, stop, you know. Bro, like, that war wouldn't have affected him. Like, if he was somebody who was selfish and greedy, he could have just said, you know what, let him fight. I don't care, you know. None of my guys are getting hurt. But no, he was like, you know what, I want peace. I think peace is the best route to go. So, hey, why don't we stop this? Y'all won. Y'all killed Ace and Whitebeard. So let the rest of the Whitebeard pirates go. Let them take the corpses of Ace and Whitebeard. Let's call it a day. You know what I'm saying? And speaking to the Whitebeard pirates, you know, y'all just leave. Y'all take the corpses. Y'all go live to y'all go to fight another day. So, and what are some other instances we could talk about? Shanks going to the Gorosei, I already talked about that. Shanks going to Whitebeard, telling him like, look, you don't need to like stop Ace from chasing Blackbeard. He's dangerous. You know, I think Shanks believed in Ace. You know, I do think Shanks believed in Ace to be important to the future. And he didn't want Ace to die because he believed that Ace was an important figure to the future. So that's why he was trying to tell Whitebeard, like, hey, stop Ace. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do think there is definitely a lot of proof to back what Parvision says about Shanks's resolve to protect the future. And yeah, I think great point, great video. But yeah, that is the video. That is the reaction. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Also subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Also comment down below your thoughts on the video at hand. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What did you agree with in the original video or disagree with? You know, let me know down in the comments. If you want to go call me an idiot, call me an idiot. That's what the comments are for. Also, follow me on Twitch so you can engage with me in real time while I'm live. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook if you want to get at me directly. And you could join the Discord to get at me directly. It's going to be the best place to get at me directly because it's where I'm usually the most active. And if you want to send me content like the videos we watched today, follow me on the Discord or join the Discord. Yeah, the link to this video will be in the description box as well. So y'all go show Parvision some love. Go subscribe to his channel if you haven't yet. Go like the video, all that good stuff. Anyway, y'all, it's your boy Sean P, the Bluff God. I'm out of here. Peace.